unzicketed, I'm a picture, unzicketed, like a point in 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 a picture, I think my renaissance hardest part of making any sort of optical system is going to be the fact that
wait, hold on. Because it's $30,000, you're still interested in building whatever it is?
that one? You that one.
Aren't all lasers going to have a system?
No. I can buy a laser diode for $300 from Thor Lab, who has notoriously high prices, which means that.
So then why was the other one, whatever it was?
Because it's not built for running spectroscopy on a casual scale. It's built for optical tweezers. Do you know what optical tweezers are? It's using lasers to pick up atoms and move them around. That's what it's supposed to be doing. It's an insanely overspec laser.
Why were you interested in it?
Because it happens to have a neat feature where it's controlled in its fine focus shifting between different wavelengths. And it's in such a controlled, designed way. It won't have any error modes. It works perfectly in all of its intended operating environments. Whereas the lasers will naturally do a wavelength wobble, but sometimes they'll do it unstably, so they'll jump between different bands of wavelengths, or they'll do it like accidentally in an unstable way that's always random depending on your temperature and your input voltage and stuff like that, which is why laser drivers are so important, especially high volume laser drivers. So I want a laser driver that purposely sabotages the effectiveness of the laser so that it wobbles, but in a controlled way, ideally. I can account for it not being a controlled way by just guessing. Software can compensate for it. Ideally, it doesn't control it because like that. The most complex part and complicated the hardest part of building what I'm going to be building is that when you're working with super resolution, centering is a bitch. Like even in our current just ordinary light maker kits.
The seeds are going right here.
Centering up, like remember Josh had trouble with centering the base condenser?
Versus another kind of condenser?
Well, any kind of condenser, you have to manually center it. And to make sure that the center of the condenser lines up with the center of the alpha capacitors and lines up with the center of the ejector.
That's what the fancy
things are for, right? All the centering is hard enough to do when we're just working with normal everyday light, where it's fine if you're off by, I don't know, 3 millimeters or something, and you'll still see a perfectly good image. But when you're working with lasers, and on the super resolution microscope I want to build is not actually using lasers, as it turns out. It actually uses entirely just a normal incoherent light sources, while still giving...
You're talking about your ramen now?
No, it's not ramen. I mean, that's a new project.
What? What's your new project?
Super resolution microscopy.
would you want to do that?
Because I can, and it turns out, with just a few simple modifications to how you set up a regular light microscope's optical path, you can get something that gives you 7 times better axial resolution and twice better lateral resolution. That's why. And it's not even just theoretically that part complex to build. The most part complex thing, I think, is just fucking centering the thing.
I find it fascinating. Art without microscopy that caught your attention.
Technical things rather than the actual microscope that's looking for it.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, just the actual thing is like, what do you actually?
Like at the end of the day, it's just pretty pictures all the way down.
Yeah.
Or it's very blurry, vaguely discernible pictures. All once you get to a certain depth, that's right.
I think it's the idea that you get to design something.
You get to design something, also get to design things on the cutting edge of science. Although technically, the scientific papers that I'm reading right now are 20 years old, which makes it absolutely insane to me that nobody's usefully picked it up and done stuff with it.
Well, I'm sure they have, we just haven't come across it.
I just looked up I5M and I5S microscopes, and there's nothing. Like, there are microscopes that use structured illumination. There's at least a couple of those. And, oh my god. I'm looking at, like, the images, and on the left there's wide field normal fluorescence, right? It's normal, like, basically what ever fluorescence, but my mind will give you. And then, in the center there's confocal, which uses a fancy setup of 2 pinholes that are perfectly aligned to block out those lights. And on the right there's SIM, structured illumination microscopy. And so on the left, the white field photo, right, this ordinary white field photo, you have some blurry green blob, just like, yeah, there's some shit here, it's got a general blobby shape. Confocal, you can see, like, the blob has structures, but it's still very blurry, and you can't really see what's going on. And then SIM, you can see the individual proteins all on display.
You mean like electron microscope?
No, it's not an electron microscope. It's still a perfectly ordinary optical microscope. But it uses Moyer patterns to increase the resolution. Specifically, it's Moyer patterns that have been computationally enhanced. The Moyer pattern gives the computer enough information to properly resolve the image. Your eye can't see it. Your eye will just see some random weird-looking shit. By merging the information to the computer, it can properly deconvolute the image.
I like how they were saying that they can take photographs that are out of
focus and turn them into focus. Right.
Yeah.
And you can do that just with a regular microscope. But it doesn't have the proper ability to resolve the image. With SIM, I5M, and I5S, you get the added information you need to properly resolve it.
Alright, now, these seeds, I think, would be nice little, like she has some that she collected over there, and then we can leave them like this and make a little pretty thing. Or you could actually harvest them and put them in our salads.
You want to put these in a
Well, I don't know.
You want to bring up a petals thing?
orange bits are not the seeds.
I think they're getting.
Think about this now.
Huh?
It's bitter too.
You like the paper?
What are you eating?
Oh, you're eating red ones.
What are you eating?
Yellow ones.
Let's pick it all.
Okay. The shell is not great.
You know what, Mom?
What?
You gotta go bring some of these ideas to some Michelin chef. I'm sure they'll love it. Those kind of things that would sell amazing at a Michelin restaurant.
Jewels of opar beaded salad thing.
It's really hard to get these off there, huh?
Yeah, even more so like it would sell so well. We could charge $16,000 for this one dish.
How do you set them off? Hey,
Put that probably on.
yeah.
I mean, I can get them, but they're still attached to the base. Just their individual base.
How do you detach them?
But
I'm sure they have it.
trying to like
Oh, imagine these little flowers. Oh, they weren't